Welcome to another episode of Black Cop and Crime. Thank you guys for joining us for episode 90, where this week we will be focusing on Anthony Sowell. Apparently, that's how you say his name, Anthony Sowell. I say Anthony Sowell, though. So Brandy says Anthony Sowell. So we'll be talking about him, and he is a serial killer that was murdering neighborhood women in the early 2000s. So we'll talk about him. Thank you for joining us, to any new subscribers, and also because you've been with us from the beginning, middle, and then now. We are now have our episodes on YouTube. They will also be on Anchor FM and Spotify, so you can listen in your car. But you can always visit us on Facebook at Black Coffee Crime, and also on Instagram, Black Coffee Crime. All of the links for the shows, YouTube, Spotify, whatever, will be there. So you can always go there for old episodes and anything that's upcoming. Just a little disclaimer: we like to say it every now and again. We're not law enforcement professionals. You don't come for us for nothing. If you got something to say, be polite and respectful, because the end of this 2022 is really volatile season, especially for me. So I might snap, but just be respectful so I can return that energy. And but yeah, you can always leave comments at info@blackcoffeecrime.com or on Facebook or Instagram if you have something constructive, or if we missed information, you have any show ideas or anything like that. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and go forward. Did y'all have any news stories this week that have happened in the last couple weeks that you wanted to bring up before we start on Anthony? No.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, if y'all Daryl Brooks, I'm checking right now, make sure you got convicted, but I can't quite remember. If you didn't, I only was aware of this story because of TikTok. I did not know. I remember it happening, but I didn't know the trial was already in progress. And I started following the trial after I saw one of the clips on TikTok and was completely appalled. And he got sentenced. Well, I definitely know he got convicted, but I just need to double check the conviction really fast.
Yeah, he won't be sentenced until the 15th of this month of November. Yeah, so it's going to be November 15th that he gets sentenced, but he's definitely convicted. And if you recall, this is the guy who last Christmas, 2021, drove his car through a Christmas parade and he killed 6 people and injured a lot, dozens of others in, I think it's Minnesota, Waukesha County, Minnesota, or something like that. Or was that Minnesota or?
It was, yes, it was in Wisconsin.
Oh, Waukesha, Wisconsin. So that happened last Christmas. And the trial was a total shit show. He was his own defense team. He drove that judge crazy. He made a mockery of that courtroom, but they let him do what he was going to do because they didn't want him to say there was a mistrial or anything. So they let him act a complete monkey in there. And when I say monkey, I really mean an actual monkey, nothing racial implied. But they let him act a complete fool in that courtroom. So he could never say that, that they didn't, that everything wasn't above board. But, it was a mess. Total mess.
Yes, and he was charged with more than 76 charges, including 6 counts of intentional homicide.
That's crazy.
So, yeah. So it was just a shit show. I guess that's the reason I remember, because he just, oh my God, he just really pissed me off. So.
Another tragedy in the media right now is Takeoff from the Migos was shot last week in Houston. He wasn't really involved in anything, but he was killed. And I just heard that they're going to do his funeral at I forget what the arena's called, but it's in Atlanta, the same place where the Falcons play. the Atlanta Falcons place. So they're going to have his funeral there this week. I think this week they're
I
working
think
on
so. Yeah.
Yeah,
And then
20
Aaron Carter, like the pop star, he passed away, yesterday?
yesterday would have been the 6th, so November 6th, he passed away. They found him in the bathtub or in the bathroom or something like that. And then I heard today that they found like glue, like aerosol glue or something, cans of aerosol adhesive glue or whatever. You can get high, like super high with that. So I don't know how true that is, but they're saying that the police found that at the scene. I don't know if that had anything to do with it, but I'm just saying that was in that news article today. So yeah, that's sad. But he's been going through depression and suffering from mental illness for quite some time now. So check on your folks, check on your people. So just check on them because you just never know. All right, we're gonna go ahead and start with talking about Anthony. Brady, say his name because you want to say it in a proper way. Sowell. Anthony Sowell. Sowell. I just say Anthony Sowell. Like that's the way it comes out.
Or Sowell. Sowell.
Okay, for those speaking proper English, it's probably Sowell. For those speaking AAVE, it's Sowell. Because that's we're not going with that extra.
Definitely says so. Definitely says so.
Well, everybody else was saying Sowell, so.
Then the people that's doing like the first 48 announcers, Anthony Sowell. We ain't got time to be trying to Sowell. I bet you no one in his whole life called him Anthony Sowell.
But I'm saying across several things.
None of his intimates, none of the people that actually know him call him, or in his neighborhood call him Anthony Sowell.
They probably called him Tony. He probably didn't have no last name.
Well, obviously he did. He was actually the last of 7 kids to his mother. Doesn't really. It just says she was a single mother. Doesn't really say anything about father interaction.
There wasn't.
There was no. Yeah, so he was the last of 7 kids, and at some point, like teenage years or whatever, one of his sisters passed away, and his mother took a guardianship of her 7 children, his sister's 7 children, and in that household, the household was already an abusive environment when he was growing up, and then it became further abusive because Anthony and his brothers were abusing one of the nieces for years. And that's something that has come out. So he was already, even before he left home to go to the army, he was already, it was already there. It was already there. But he does go, when he's 18, he does go to the military. He's actually, he goes to the Marines. He's actually a pretty good soldier. Like he was, what was it, like 7 years in the military? And he had a good military career. Like the guys that we talked about last week, one of them was what was his name? Roy. What was his name? Roy. Help me out, y'all. Who was it last week?
The Toolbox Murders?
Toolbox guys.
You know my memory's bad.
I know your memory. Roy Norris. That's what his name was. I had to go to my notes. Roy Norris. He was in the military, but he was kicked out because he sexually assaulted a couple women during his military stint. But Anthony was not that guy while he was in the military. Let me just ask this question, y'all. What do you think the reason why he came from an abusive household? He was sexually abusing his niece for years. Then he goes to the military and he doesn't do that, or he doesn't get caught. What do you think is the reason why he did it at home?
Maybe it was the discipline of the army. Or it could be that Mostly men. I'm not sure.
Or maybe a small slight of, let me try to be a little bit better, or some form of guilty conviction. Okay, well, this is my opportunity to be different and be better, or to actually feel like I'm somebody.
It
Because
says
even though he was SAing, his niece and going on, he was also going through abuse. So I don't know if it was maybe his method. Just one of my theories that he was just trying to be better. I
Mhm.
don't know.
yeah. It said his mother was very proud of him, and he had his relationship with his mother was a little off when he
Mhm.
came back. But I remember the sister saying that he thought that the mother didn't love him as much, and she was saying it wasn't that. She doesn't think that it was the mother wasn't loving him as much as it was he didn't love his mother as much as she loved him. So so maybe he thought he was making his family proud, or
Mhm.
who knows? It could just be the strict regimen, or
Mhm.
one needing that discipline.
I just found it real interesting that he came from, you know, a volatile environment. And even as a teenager, he's already developing in this criminal career. And then he goes to the military and he does nothing for 7 years. And then he gets out. And when he gets
Immediately.
out, immediately in 1989, he is convicted of, no, he's arrested on charges of rape, attempted rape, and kidnapping. And then he pled guilty to attempted rape and was given a 15-year sentence. This is right after he discharged from the Marines. Like, so he went 7 years as a model citizen, model soldier, nothing. Like his cooling off period is legendary. And then he gets out and he's out and he starts immediately. Like, that's why I asked that question, because he's doing it at home and then there's this long period of nothing. And then it's not like he wouldn't have had the opportunity if he wanted to create an opportunity to essay someone. He would have, he would have been able to create an opportunity to do that, but he didn't. And then when he goes back to Cleveland, it starts immediately. That's in 1989. He's released in 2005. Once he's released, he kind of becomes like a hobo around town, like the neighborhood where he's in. Like, he's just collecting scrap and just a guy.
He started and then he started on that narcotic.
Yeah,
Yep. Yep.
it's powerful drugs, powerful thing. Um, Now, okay, I have a question, and I don't know if this is even pertinent to anything. Whose house was that? Like, how did he buy that house? Did he inherit the house?
That
Or did
house
he
was like,
just move in it?
I think he just moved in it. They were saying there was a lot of abandoned houses in the area, and that the house didn't have running water or anything like that. So, but it was a two family home, but it had 3 stories, and I think he lived on the second floor.
Mm-hmm.
And at least where one of the documentaries I watched, one of the women said that he kind of had just moved in there.
So he was a squatter. I've always wondered, like, whose house that was, because, well, I mean, technically, as a veteran, he would have been able, probably maybe been eligible for a GI Bill to purchase, but he wasn't working. He worked for a few months at a warehouse when he got out of the military, and then he was on unemployment. I wasn't able to find out if he was even,
I think before, when he first came home, he was living with his sister and his mother.
mm-hmm.
And the sister was saying how much he totally was a different person when he came back, and he started speaking real like angry and bad to the mother. And the sister was like, "You're not gonna talk to my mama like that." And I guess it was a situation where, I can't have you acting like that around my kids. I can't have you talking to my mom like that. You got to go.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
And that's how he just started going to the street. Um, Yeah, I've always wondered. I don't know if he was collecting VA benefits or anything like that on top of unemployment. But within 2 years of his release from prison is when he starts his murder spree, well, his serial killer career. Within 2 years, um, and it took 2 years for police to pay attention. Now there were okay, so he was convicted of the attempted rape in 1989 and 2005. As early as 2007, there are people in that neighborhood who are complaining of a foul stench coming from the house.
Right.
Everybody kind of chalks it up to there's a sausage shop not too far from the house. So everybody just kind of chalks it up. This is a butcher shop or whatever. Maybe the smells are coming from there.
I mean,
But
it was exactly, it was next door to his to the property.
But there was like a lot, like the house was a big house. And I've seen homes in certain neighborhoods in Cleveland. These are really big houses. And there was like a lot or something, but it was still technically next door.
Well, they tore the house down, but
yeah,
there was like a little strip in between. Like they weren't back to back, but it was next door basically. But the sausage factory, the door faced the other street. The back of the sausage shop, it looked like, and his house looked like they were, his face forward and theirs was faced to the back. So their door probably was on the opposite street. At least that's how it looked to me.
Yeah. And so, people are, they're complaining about it. But here's the thing. They were on the east side of Cleveland. I don't really know. I've never been to Cleveland. But from what I understand, this particular neighborhood the demographic was predominantly African American, not very affluent. And so the police presence was like nil.
Nothing. And I think at that time, that neighborhood was full of crackheads, other drug users, and prostitutes. So the neighborhood had gone down, and basically that's who was in that neighborhood.
Yeah. And these are the women these are the type of women that he targeted. These were vulnerable women. For whatever reason, they were vulnerable. And it goes from drug addiction, alcoholism, and also mental illness. There were 11 women. And I wrote down their names, and there were, of the 11, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of them were reported missing. 6. None of them were really investigated. The first one was Crystal Dozier, and her family launched their own investigation because the police failed to do anything. She was 38 years old. She actually kind of fell into a hard life when one of her children died, and she was one of the victims. She was discovered in 2009, late 2009, next to a fence in the backyard. Let's see. And and it's when it comes to victims like this, we want, the media, the public, and we kind of vilify the victims because they're on drugs or they're prostitutes or whatever. We really don't know what leads them to that life. No one wants to be on drugs. No one wants to be out there like that. But things happen. You can't take it. And most of these women, there was something that was the catalyst to them ending up a person who would be vulnerable to Anthony. One of the other victims was Tashana Culver. She was 33. She was a mother. Most of these women were young mothers. And her family said she was really kind. She would bring food she was out there, but she would also be helping other people who were out there. And she disappeared in 2008. Once the police started to investigate the property where Anthony lived, that's when her family they were worried, but that's when they were really worried that that's where she ended up, and that's exactly um, where she ended up. They had to go and identify her as well. Um, and the list goes, the list goes on. Um, but yeah, they're all missing. Most of them were reported, and the police did nothing. The one person that got him caught up was, her name was Vanessa Gay, and he lured her to his house with the promise that they were going to smoke crack, get drunk, or whatever. He's triggered by something. He starts to beat her. He chokes her. He sexually assaulted her, but she got away and reported to the police. And then he ran. And then a couple of days, they found him on Halloween of 2009. When they found him is when they really started to investigate that property. And they found something in there that rivaled what they found in Jeffrey Dahmer's apartment. Yep. And this is really why we wanted to do this story, is because we wanted to compare someone like Jeffrey Dahmer to someone like Anthony Sowell, because they both targeted vulnerable Black people in predominantly Black neighborhoods. But where's the outrage for the victims of Anthony Sowell? Like, what's the difference between these two killers? They both targeted the vulnerable in Black neighborhoods on purpose. Why are we getting, I know why we're getting the backlash for Jeffrey Dahmer, and everybody's disgusted by Jeffrey Dahmer, but why are we equally or even more disgusted by Anthony Sowell? Why wouldn't we be? And I'm talking about the public at large, not us, but just, the public at large. Why aren't there people on social media talking about who Anthony Sowell was? Like, why isn't that?
I think that sometimes our culture tends to turn their backs when it tends to deal with us, because it's kind of like I don't want to say it, and I always get in trouble, but I'm just gonna say it. I ain't got no choice. It's kind of like, that's white people shit. You know what I'm saying? And when it's a Black person doing it, it's kind of like, damn, you know what I'm saying? Golly, this is supposed to be a white person acting, and this is you acting like this. So let's hush. Like, don't bring too much attention to us. Let's just keep it on the hush. I guess it would, kind of like the same thing on Black crime, which is no different than any crime against a Black person. It's a hush thing. We can't draw that much attention to it, because you got some people that are already trying to fight for us, and then here you go having to do it, and now here we are having to fight you and them. Now it makes us look bad. It's just, that's the way that I took it. Now that you said that, that's a really good question, but it's kind of like that's white people shit. Like, you shouldn't have did that. We shouldn't have did that. That's their stuff.
I think that Jeffrey Dahmer was romanticized. And also, look at this guy, and he comes from this home with this mentally ill mother, and this father. Father was a good guy in the community, and all. Something must have happened to him to make him do these sick, heinous crimes. And then the fact that he was eating them, and the more gory it is, the more people are gonna fall into that story. And Anthony Sowell was a regular guy, crackhead. Everybody said he was pretty nice, but he killed, as one of the guy who owned the store said, he took the trash out. He actually made the sick remark that he wished there was 100 other Anthony's, because he took the trash out, meaning he killed the undesirable prostitutes that were in the neighborhood.
But think about it. Jeffrey Dahmer was killing Black gay people predominantly, right? So you could have that. You can transfer that same. Not that someone did say,
but they were still.
But they were men. Transfer that same thing. Right, but I'm saying you can still transfer that same thing, because we're talking about the early 90s. We're still talking about the age of AIDS in the early 90s. when people were thinking that you got AIDS by contact. And so the sentiment towards homosexuality was the same thing as these women, you're taking out the trash. So we're dealing with the same
these,
type of person.
But these were also Black women. Even though they were Black men, they were men.
I understand, but what I'm talking about is the type of victim, not necessarily the gender of the victim, but the type of victim and what they represent. They still represent the lowest of society and things that we throw away, which are gay, at that time was Black gay people or just gay people in general. And then we're talking about Black women who are either prostitutes and or drug addicts or alcoholics, right? And then, but what we're really talking about is how Anthony Sowell and Jeffrey Dahmer are the same damn person with a different skin tone.
Mm.
So again, like, why are we so pissed off at a Jeffrey Dahmer, but not an Anthony Sowell? Like, we have all these people digging into Jeffrey Dahmer who did not even, they didn't live through it. They didn't, they weren't even alive. The people who are outraged by it are all young people. They didn't even watch the Netflix movie, nor did they watch the Dahmer tapes documentary. But they're forming an opinion because you said, Jeffrey Dahmer is romanticized. Jeffrey Dahmer ate his victims. But yeah, that is grotesque as hell because it's cannibalism, and that's a Western society taboo.
I think there was outrage at the time that it happened, but this whole bringing back up Dahmer, we have more of a presence on social media. We have TikTok. We have all these different things to talk about, for people to say what they want to say, and those who are not there at the time to say what they want to say. Nobody's done a movie on Anthony.
I mean, is it just is the focus only on the fantasizing? Because I mean, there's still Black cannibalism that's happened. So are you saying the focus is only on the fact, because when you compare everything, the only thing it sounds like is just the fact that one thing separates the two of them.
And because Anthony was Black. I mean, you don't have nothing. He was, even though there's clear instances in this story where the police department messed up and, he could have been caught. This is a Black man targeting weaker Black women in a broke down neighborhood. Jeffrey Dahmer is a white man who was killing Black men. Already there's going to be outrage. Outrage. It was a white man.
I'm saying is you could just take Jeffrey and put him in Cleveland, and you could take Anthony and put him in wherever the hell Jeffrey was in Minnesota, Milwaukee. You could put them in either situation, and the same thing would happen.
It's just, the Black, it's just a foul silence of trying to remind people that Black people are this type of way. That's because, I mean, they're literally the same other than that one instance. I mean, you can literally put them in the same situation, same category. It's literally the exact same thing. So that can only be the one thing. Like she said, I mean, I don't know what else it could be. I mean, because why not?
And I just have questions because when we put this subject up there, I was like, because I really want to talk about the difference between the two or the similarities between the two. I think that the outrage for Jeffrey comes with what he did with the people after they were dead, not necessarily that they killed them, because murder is a part of the backbone of America. Like, that's just what we do. This is the backbone of Western society. I mean, we're just used to it. We go to war every other year. But I think it's what he did. I think it's the taboo of cannibalism. And then the fact that these were Black people, you ate them. And I think that's the part that, no pun intended, that's the part that we can't stomach. Not only did you kill them, why did you have to eat them? Like, that's the ultimate insult and disrespect, that you ate them. But to me, they're dead anyway. And I don't want to seem callous but they're already dead. The worst part is that they're dead.
Well, I also think that Anthony enjoyed the kill.
Anthony enjoyed the kill. Jeffrey enjoyed the I'm not even going to use that rhyme. I'm not going to use that rhyme because it's wrong because I'll be going to get in trouble for that. Anthony enjoyed killing. Jeffrey killed out of necessity so he can get the thrill of a dead body, of touching, being with, eating the dead body, consuming, however he would consume it, either through touch or through ingestion. It was a necessity. Anthony, I don't even know what his we know what his MO was, but it's kind of like he could have done anything with these women and they wouldn't have told. These women wouldn't have told, just like the men in Jeffrey's instance, he didn't have to kill them. They wouldn't have told because they were gay. The police wouldn't, they were black, they were gay, the police wouldn't have believed them anyway. You're gay, that's what
Somebody
you
would have told, but somebody ended up telling in both situations.
Right, but how long did it take in both situations? How long did it take? How many victims did it take? How many instances of women or men running out of these apartments did it take for someone to pay attention? We have 6 women out of 11 who all were reported missing in one neighborhood.
It was a black neighborhood. It was a crime-ridden neighborhood, and he didn't kill as long as Jeffrey. I think Jeffrey got away with it for much, much longer than Anthony did. There was a smell, same smell, and this smell was coming outside the house. It wasn't just in the building; it was outside the building.
For Jeffrey, one of the things, besides all the things that are obvious, one of the reasons why Jeffrey was able to get away with it, even though he lived in a predominantly black neighborhood, his victims didn't all live there. So the people that were missing weren't necessarily missing in his neighborhood. There were, you know what I mean? He had a wider net. He was bringing them to his apartment. Anthony, even though he was bringing them to his home, these people lived in the neighborhood, which is crazy that these women are going missing. They're telling, and the police are like, well, you know what? You know, she's out there like that. You know, she could be anywhere. Why would she be anywhere? I have known a bunch of crackheads, a bunch of them, and none of them really go far.
Facts. I would say they gonna always be known where they at.
None of them really travel very far outside of their neighborhood. They are going to stay where it's familiar, where I can get a meal, where I can take a shower, where my mama lives, where my auntie lives, my brother, my sister, somebody lives, so that at some point they can take care of me or I can see them, where my kids are, and where my pusher is. The most important person in the crackhead's life is the dope man. They not gonna stray far. So the fact that the police didn't put this together, like, you said she's on drugs. Who sold her drugs? You know who the dope man is for any particular crackhead that you know. There might be 15 different pushers in your neighborhood, and you know to a T which crackhead goes to which dope man.
Nobody cares about crackheads.
You should, because crackheads are the cornerstone of a lot of neighborhoods.
Don't care about crackhead. They done stole all my stuff.
They stole all your stuff, but they could also told you who else stole your stuff. If somebody else
they're not going to care. They're crackheads and they're prostitutes and they're undesirables, and they're
low life.
Brought the neighborhood down, and
it's a low life.
Have no value.
And I think that's the crux of both. You know, even though we brought John Moran into this and we talked about Anthony, so I think that's the crux of both victim profile, whatever. In both scenarios, is that all these victims are considered to have no value. To have no value because there's no possible way that you wouldn't. In 2007, you would not be able to put it together that why are all these women missing from this neighborhood? Where's the smell coming from? And we have a convicted sex offender that lives there. We know where he is. We know who
You
he
know
is.
how many convicted sex offenders is probably in that neighborhood?
Mm. Have you ever, when you say that, have you ever looked up the sex offender list? And you shouldn't do this
Yes,
if
I
you
do.
have
Because
anything
they are
very
all
well.
everywhere.
Yes, I
You will
do.
be surprised. There's a website, and I forgot what it was, but you can actually go to this website and it will tell you one, where sex offenders are, but also where other crimes have occurred in your neighborhood. And was it a car theft? Was it domestic violence? Was it an assault? Whatever. It could tell you where that happened in your neighborhood. And I'm quite sure that those similar websites existed in 2007 to 2009. But again, we have to consider the neighborhood that we're talking about.
Well, the sex offenders, like I know, like around that time, it was a little bit more bold. You know, they had like some of them had signs, some of them had mail that went out to you and was like, "Hey, I just want to let you know that this person is moving in your neighborhood. They're a sex offender." It used to happen. Like I used to get that kind of mail all the time. So you're definitely right. They're getting notified that they're in the area, but like BW said, it's just that nobody, they considered like, who cares? Like, look at this area.
And then also, you said something earlier about how our community protects Black criminals. We do. We talked about this before, how we think that, or I've said it at least, that anyone who commits a drive-by or whatever is necessarily a serial killer or a spree killer. But we will never say that or admit that if that's the person in your family. We have that one uncle who, if you at the family reunion, you always ask, where them kids at? Where them kids? They've been gone too long. Don't let them kids go over there back in the, back there for too long. We protect them. And I think that's a thing with an Anthony Sowell is that, and I don't know this to be true, but just in a hypothetical scenario, that you do have someone who's been convicted of attempted rape in prison, in prison for 15 years, and who was sexually assaulting a child in your house, and you hear about these missing women and the smells coming from the house, and you don't say anything. You don't say anything. Like it didn't even take the police to put this together. There had to be someone in the family. And again, if one of his family members is out there, I don't know this to be true, so I'm not saying it actually happened, but I would think that someone would know or suspect that maybe it's him. But of course, we're not going to go ahead and freely admit that and go to the police.
Well, his sister said she didn't believe it. She said that was so opposite of her brother. She did not believe it. She thought he was being set up. But afterwards, she realized that he did do it. But she didn't believe it at first.
Did she know about the abuse of the niece her niece when she was saying that he didn't do it?
That wasn't brought up, but she said that she didn't believe it because he was, she did say after he got back that he was different. Like but before that, she said they were thick as thieves. Their grandmother ended up helping raise them, and seems like she might have been a little abusive, and they really clung together because of that. But
is that the same sister that said he was like checking the mama? Is that the same sister he lived with the mom?
Yeah, that he got real grim with the mama and was talking out the side of his neck. And then she was like, nah, you got to go. But she still didn't think that he would go that far as to do that, kill those women and have them laid up in the house and all of that. And I'm like, but he did go to prison for sexual assault. But she didn't think that her brother would kill.
And then on top of that, he wasn't the only one in that household abusing that niece. The other brothers were too. So you live in a household with several rapists, not one where you could possibly hide it. No one's anything. You live in a house where these men And they were grown at the time. Anthony was a teenager, doesn't excuse it, but these are grown ass men assaulting a 10-year-old child. And you're saying that you don't believe? That's fucking impossible. That you that
Well, you know
that
we don't like
goes on in your house.
you know we don't
You
like
don't
nothing.
know that.
You know we are big on don't tell what's going on in this house and the
At
shame
that
and all of that around sexual
then just shut
abuse
up.
and all of
Don't
that.
say I don't believe he didn't do it or he couldn't have done it. What?
Well, she ended up having to get out the area because even her kids were being taunted and treated bad because of it. But I mean, she did end up telling the police that her brother had called her and all of that. She really didn't know where he was. But she, did let them know that that he had called her. Her mother's health went down. She was so proud of him when he went to the military, and then this happens, and they're being treated like they were the ones who did the crime, and so they definitely felt. Well, the neighborhood let them know that basically it's your fault too, even though he did it. Y'all might as well did it too, I guess. Also they couldn't get to him at the time to attack him or deal with their frustration on him, so they did it to his family. But yeah, I know the one lady, I can't think of her name, the one lady who ended up getting away, the one that went and reported him. Her testimony, oh my gosh, she had blue on in the testimony. I can't think of her name, but her testimony, with her saying that she had asked to go to the bathroom and she seen the bodies, one without a head on it, and she was trying to come back. This after he's beat her and raped her all night, and she tries to come back to him like nothing, and not show what she just saw and knew that she didn't get out of there, that she was going to be next. And basically, I'm not going to tell, this was a little rougher than I'm used to, but I'm okay. And the fact that she didn't want him walking behind her, that she walked with him because she didn't want him to kill her. Mm-hmm. It was a lot. It was a lot. And she ran out, and she said it was on a Sunday, and she ran out. People were getting out of church. She said people were laughing at her and making fun of her, and nobody would help her. Nobody helped her. She was running to everybody. Help me, help me, help me. Nobody helped her.
So the same sentence that the police have, that these people are throwaways, the community has the same. The community thinks the same thing.
So if the community thinks the same thing, you don't care about them. Why would an outsider care about them? And these are supposed to be church folk.
Oh, well, you already know about church folk. Let's not get me talking about church folk.
She said they were making fun of her and laughing at her. And she's beat up. She's been beat up and raped all day, all night, all day. And they made fun of her. They didn't help.
And that's a thing that he would, I saw something a long time ago by Anthony Sowell. And that's what he would continue his assault for quite some time. And, with between alcohol and smoking and everything, you're out of it. He was basically able to do whatever he wanted. He would bind them like with duct tape, all kinds of things. So I just don't know. Like you said, his sister said that, when he got home from the military, he was changed. So it's kind of like, what happened to him?
We don't know.
Was it kind of like, I don't know, have you guys ever seen Full Metal Jacket? Okay. If you could watch the first maybe 45 minutes of Full Metal Jacket, you'd understand what I'm talking about with Private Pile. Private Pile was this guy who was just a big goofball. He would always get in trouble. He would make the other troops get in trouble.
That movie.
Yeah, and something happened. Well, they kept getting in trouble for him having to do extra PT and all this stuff, and so they decided they were going to beat him. And they tied him to his bed and they beat him. The entire platoon or whatever took turns beating him. And from that moment, he snapped into something completely different. He was like a psycho after that. He was so it just reminds me like what happened to Anthony, and to not because he was already on his career of being a rapist or whatever, but what happened to make him a killer?
I don't know about that. I think part of that is he didn't want to go back to prison as well. Because I remember the lady said he kept saying, "You're going to tell, you're going to tell," and she was like, "I'm not going to tell, I'm not going to tell." I think, but the thing is, he still let her go. And why did he let her go? And then the woman who, when he fell
I
asleep and
think
she
it was
jumped out the window.
the attention to the detail of her, first of all, her behavior and her being able to recognize that I need to remain safe. So let me make him feel like this isn't a big deal. Like, it sounds like she was trying to consistently remind him, like, hey, this is normal. It's okay. It's not a big deal. Like, I can handle it. Because it takes a lot of strength to go through that. Man, I'm going to go look at that. I just want you to know that. It
I
takes
think
a
part
lot
of
of
it too is,
strength.
I think part of it too is because the woman who jumped out the window, she didn't even tell. She didn't even, I mean, they called 911, but,
Do you blame her?
huh?
I mean, do you blame
Well,
her based on
I'm saying
the
she wouldn't
experience
tell
that
because probably she would think that no one would believe me. I'm a prostitute, I'm a crackhead. Nobody's going to believe me.
happened? Yeah,
Even
exactly.
though there was somebody who saw her jump out that window and called 911.
Did the police show up?
She wouldn't press charge. She wouldn't come in to talk to them. She was too ashamed.
Yeah, and at the time, I do know that um, if you go in to report an assault because something happened to you as a prostitute, they'd arrest you for prostitution. They'd arrest you on drug charges, and you're like, but I'm a victim. I didn't even come in here for this. So you would get yourself in trouble trying to report another crime.
And what do you expect? You're a prostitute, so
Yeah, you
and
can't
you're a
be raped.
crackhead on top of that.
You can't be raped if you're a prostitute. That was the
And are you even
prevailing
a credible
law.
witness?
Exactly.
So she
Um,
wouldn't go in to testify. So that's why nothing was done at that time.
mm. One of the this is very, very grotesque and sad. One of the things that they found in the house was a skull wrapped in a bag put
In a
inside the
bucket.
bucket. That was LaShonda Long. She was 24. Let me see what happened. I think she was 24. Yeah, she was 24. Um, she was already a mother of three. She had already had three kids when she went missing in 2008. Um, it was her, and they have never found the rest of her body. They don't know what the rest of her body is.
And there were I mean, he usually got older women, but he did have a few women that were born the same year I was born.
Yeah.
And that's
33, 38. I think there are a couple of women were in their 40s and 50s. Most of them were mature women who had just fallen. And if you think about it, when I was growing up, we grew up in the age when crack became king on the streets. And it was our friends' mothers who were getting addicted because this was also the party era and party culture. And I can tell you exactly how it starts. A tragedy or something bad happening in your life can trigger you to lead you to down the path of drugs and alcohol. But for those who were functioning members of society, had great jobs and all of these things were, doing their thing, they also partied. And there were a lot of drugs involved, and it was cocaine involved. And I know this to be true because I've seen it. There was cocaine involved, a lot of it. But cocaine was expensive. If you wanted to snort and snoot something, it's expensive. It's in a very expensive habit. And Somebody came up with the bright idea to smoke that shit. And where sniffing cocaine is a party drug, you sniff it, you're gonna be high for a couple of days, and you're gonna be able to party, then go to work, and then do it again, and do it again for a couple of days, and then by the next weekend you could. Crack is immediately addictive. Coke, you would be able to do and then function for a couple of days and you'd be fine. Crack was immediately addictive. And for the people who have been able to describe it to me, and I've asked, the very first high you get is the best thing in the world to them. The very first time. So the entire time after that, you are chasing the first high that you get, and you never get as high as you did the first time. And then after a while, you plateau and you can't even get high anymore. You just do it to function. So most of that was happening to our friends' mothers. So these women being in their 40s and 50s smoking crack makes perfect sense to me of why they're this age doing it, because this is during this time is when this is the age that they would have been. These were people's moms, and I have seen my friends' moms, my cousins' moms, my uncles. Yeah, I've seen lots of people, have this great life and fall prey to crack. So all of this makes sense. All of this makes sense. Even Anthony falling off and getting on drugs and alcohol. All of that makes sense. All of it makes sense. I'm just like when I say the story makes sense, it's just because this is life. This is something that happens. But I'm just amazed at how outraged the public is about Jeffrey Dahmer, but not researching enough to find out that there's an Anthony Sowell. And I know that also historically most serial killers are white. But I think, again, most serial killers that are documented as white, because Black people, we don't pay attention to that or we don't report it. We have serial rapists, serial killers all through our neighborhoods, but nobody talks about it.
But folks when they say that something happened, the people are like, I hope he ain't Black. I hope he ain't Black. I hope he ain't Black.
What color is he? Like, because we don't want that. It's like we have so much stacked up against us. That's the least of the things that we want. But us doing this, we already know that this and Anthony Sowell is more common than what most people think about or most people know about. The Briley brothers are more common. The Carr brothers from Kansas are way more common than what we talk about. But we just want to keep it. We want to keep it close. We don't want to talk about it, but we probably know somebody. Jackie, our very first story was somebody that you knew or knew about. It happens.
Oh, we know. If you live in a neighborhood like that, serial rapists and serial murderers, but they just aren't holding them. They're doing drive-bys and just killing other gang members and doing all this stuff and not stacking up bodies in their house. And they don't have all these, these gruesome body parts everywhere. And so it's just, they're killing somebody. I think the parts that are just like, oh my gosh, like he had bodies everywhere and the smell and all this stuff. So you look at it worse. But your cousin been in a gang, been killing folks since he was 14, but you don't look at that the same way because it doesn't have the gruesome factor.
They picked those bodies up and took them to the morgue. They got those bodies off the street.
Yeah, it's not as gruesome, even though it's horrible. But it's not. There's nothing that's just repulsive about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's what it is. I think we're more focused on, again, what happens after. If someone does something to a body after they're dead, then we're totally grossed out by it. We're like, you just don't do that to a dead body.
And again, and if it's a gang member who's shooting another gang member, it barely makes news, barely. But
Right.
if he shoots a child or an old lady or something, oh, there was a gang member did a drive by and shot a child and a grandmother, is big news. But if they kill each other,
Because
it
it's kind of
barely.
like that's the life you signed up for. You signed up
Mm,
for this. This is the life that you live, and this is why these women went uninvestigated because that's the life that you signed up for. Jeffrey Dahmer's victims. This is the life you signed up for because you're gay. You made yourself into a victim because of the situation that you found yourself in. You're gay. You know what? What else did you expect? You're a prostitute. What did you expect? You're a druggie. What else did you expect? You know. Um,
or they
but
they probably they probably overdosed in some abandoned building or something. They're not really missing. They just
they're just out there. What like
yeah.
they're just out there doing their thing. But that's the excuse you're gonna get. But common sense, and if it's all happening in the same neighborhood, and like I said, crackheads don't travel far. They don't Uber. Crackheads don't Uber. They linger in and around the same blocks because that's where that's where the dope man is around them same blocks. And heaven forbid if the dope man go to jail because then they got to find another one. They don't travel far. So if all these women are, I don't know if all of them were on crack, but I do know that they were substance abusers of some sort. They're not going to go far because why would they? And y'all didn't do nothing.
There was a guy in the neighborhood, the one who called the police when the lady jumped out the window, and the guy interviewing him said, "Did you know all these women?" He said, "I knew them, but I didn't know. I don't know who they were or how they were before drugs." He said, "I knew them after the drugs, so I didn't really know them." Saying who they were after the drugs wasn't them. That wasn't them. He said, "I didn't know them like that. Like I knew the women they were once they were on drugs, but I didn't know them because I didn't know them before the drugs came into them, and that's who they really are." And I thought that was just very a compassionate statement because we say, "Do you know this person?" And you just pick those little bit of years when they're doing something that's not right, and for whatever reason they get caught up in whatever they're doing, and you say, "Oh, she's a bad person," or "He's a bad person," or this and that, but you never look before the person who they were before that. And so
Mm-hmm.
that really stood out to me that he that he said that about.
Yeah,
And actually, in the fact that their life was meaningless all because of who they were in that moment. It's kind of like, well, they're nobody since they did drugs. It's kind of
mm-hmm.
it kind of makes them seem like they're meaningless just because of that.
Yeah. Most of what the families have to say about, their loved ones is like with Crystal Dozier. Her mother describes her as being the responsible child in a little mother hen, but she's one of the ones that her child died and it broke her. Um, of Tashana Culver. This is the one that would go to other people in the neighborhood and bring them family and just doing random acts of kindness. Even in her situation, she would still be able to extend grace to other people. Um, let's see. Well, LaShonda Long was like, she said that she was strong willed and sassy. So these are the parts of the people that the families want you to remember, like like both of you have said, is that the media will give you a soundbite and show you a picture of someone at their absolute worst and want you to form an opinion about them because of the situation that they found themselves in at the end. But who were they in kindergarten? Because if you were, as a victim, if you had detention in the 8th grade, they will put that on the news. They had detention on them, or whatever. But they won't tell you how you were student of the month for years. You have perfect attendance. This person, um, everyone in the neighborhood knew them, but they will highlight the worst part of you, but even not even go as far as to tell them why you got to the worst part. They won't even tell you why. Like, they won't even allow you to be compassionate about someone's situation until this woman's child died, and this is what led to her drug abuse. This is what led to her. This is what led to a mental breakdown, which caused her to leave the house, which caused her to abuse drugs, which caused her to be a prostitute to support her habit. They'll just say she's a drug addicted prostitute. And I think that happens for most victims that are outside of, that are on the fringes, no matter what the gender or race or whatever. But more importantly, it does happen to Black folks and brown folks that if they are on the fringes, they will always pinpoint the worst parts about them, but never the person that they were before it happened. Hopefully people will start to, well, it ain't gonna happen. I was gonna say, hopefully people will start to look to read and research before they form opinions about things, especially like a Jeffrey Dahmer. I know he's been romanticized, but look past that. Like, you know what I mean? Like, don't create this false sense of outrage when there isn't. The outrage is, the need to be outraged, I think, is over with a person like Jeffrey Dahmer. The need to be outraged, it's already happened. You could just reflect on it and talk about it. But I don't think in our age of media, we don't read anymore. So we like to read.
No, we just read headlines.
Yeah, we read headlines on 145 characters, and we form an opinion about that. Because most of the people that I know that talked about Jeffrey talked about what they saw on social media. I'm like, did you read any of the newspaper articles? Did you watch any documentary? Did you watch the movie? And they're like, no, I'm not going to watch it. And how you going to tell me what happened? Well, he was eating people. So do the headhunters and Pow Pow McGinney, but we're not talking about them.
Plus, that's the historic moment about him. That's his name. His name is that he ate people. So I mean, that's just the basics and the base of who he is. I was on TikTok and definitely saw a lot of people that were like, "Well, I don't want to know because I'm not going to watch it." And I'm like, "Well, then what are you talking about? What are you outraged about? If you've never watched a documentary, read a book, read an article, read on what happened, went into deep in anybody's story, all you can do is say, well, I heard this because he ate people." Well, of course he ate people. That's his history. That's the historical moment of him, is that he ate people.
But again, that's the soundbite. That's the end. That's the worst of who Jeffrey was. And I'm not saying that he was a great person, but he was a person. Something happened to him, and he had a whole life before this started. Well, who was he before this started? What was the catalyst? What was the trigger? Who was Anthony Sowell before he started? Now we know that Anthony Sowell had a hell of a childhood, and he started his career in his teens in his own house. So we can understand the progression. We didn't understand Jeffrey's progression because we didn't know what happened to him before then. At least the movie kind of gave you a place to start if you weren't familiar with it, and then when you listen to the Dahmer tapes or watch the Dahmer tapes and then do a little research, you can find out, like, was he destined to be like this or something happened? So, and I think that's the reason why.
Those are the thoughts of true crime people. True crime people look beyond the crime. I'm not saying that we think the crime is right. Not saying that we think that you're supposed to, not saying that at all. It's just that we look deeper. It's kind of like, okay, well, what led here? How did we get here? What type of childhood did they have? Why did they behave this way? Why did this happen? Why did that happen? That's just I always think, like, when I hear a kind of true crime podcast, or we all do the same thing. We even do it. Like, we break down 101 things because we look beyond the crime only. Like, we need to know root and
like, why did they do what they did? And we can analyze that. We can talk about that because it's already happened. And you can have a different perspective of it. And I think that's when Jackie and I first wanted to do this, that was the point of it, is that we wanted to have a different perspective. How do we look at this as people in our community, as Black women, as Black people, what's the spin on, on the things that happen, and how can we explain it in our way? Any last thoughts about Anthony Sowell or anything else? Well, go vote. Even though this will reach y'all on Thursday, 2 days after the elections. Hopefully you voted early, or voted at all. And hopefully you didn't run into any intimidation at the polls. And I don't give a damn how you voted or what side you voted on. Well, hopefully you didn't run into any assholes at the polls trying to keep you from casting your ballot. So we will go ahead and wrap up, and we'll see you guys next time. I don't remember what we used to say. Did we used to say something about having a second cup? Something. I don't remember.
Drink
It was
some.
enjoy the second cup, or not joy, the one BW came with, right?
We need to come up with something different because we've changed a little bit. We don't do church announcements no more because, I've talked about our church announcements. But so we need to come up with something up to wrap the show. But anyway, we'll see y'all next time in a couple weeks. If y'all got any ideas, let us know. info@blackcoffeecrime.com. Facebook and Instagram, Black Coffee Crime, and also we are on Spotify and Anchor FM, Black Coffee and Crime. So if you want to listen to old episodes in your car, you got a long car ride, go ahead and log on, and you can listen to some episodes. And I'll be uploading some more older episodes here soon. So good night, y'all. Have a good one. Peace out.